Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast, hosted by Jake Bolden and presented by the Conseco Group General Contracting and Mighty Dog Roofing. Don't miss another Tuesday episode by subscribing to the podcast on all streaming platforms or catch our visual presentation uploaded every week on YouTube. Don't miss our next ticket giveaways by subscribing and following on all Blue Raider Podcast social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Blue Raider Pod. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bolden, and in today's episode, I am proudly joined by Jeff Murphy, board member of the Raiders Rising NIL Collective. Today, we'll be talking all things NIL, as well as some more things that they have coming down the future as they start to really refine what is happening over at the NIL Collective. So I look forward to that conversation, as well as if you're sticking around to the end, we're going to be talking a lot more portal updates, a little bit spring sport check-ins that where we left off from last week. But before we get into that interview, I want to take just a second to thank our sponsors of today's episode, beginning with Mighty Dog Roofing. When it comes to your home, trust Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East for all your needs. As a veteran and locally owned business, we're honored to be one of just 11 Owings Corning contractors nationwide to win their prestigious service award. From roofing and gutters to windows and siding, our expert team delivers top quality craftsmanship and unmatched service. We're here to protect your home with pride and precision. Choose Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East, where excellence is a tradition. Call us today at 615-MD Roofs. That's ROOFS, or visit their website at mightydog.roofing.com to schedule your free quote today. Also, a thanks to the Conseco Group. Since 1987, the Conseco Group has been turning dreams into reality, whether it's pre-construction consulting, construction management, design build, or renovations and improvements. We're here to exceed your expectations. At Conseco Group, we don't just deliver, we deliver with passion, precision, and unparalleled quality. Our hands-on approach ensures your investment is maximized and your vision is brought to life. From Clarksville down to Columbia and beyond, trust the Conseco Group to handle every detail with expertise and care. Are you ready to build your future? Contact the Conseco Group today at 615-298-9907 or visit their website at consecogroup.com. Once again, thanks to the Conseco Group and Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East for sponsoring today's episode. Now, before I get into that interview with Jeff Murphy, I do want to take just a second. If you're not already, make sure you're following us on all of our social media. That's at Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course on YouTube for today's presentation. Again, stick around to the end if you want some updates on the hoop portal discussion. But without further ado, I hope you enjoy this interview with Jeff Murphy.
Did you know the Blue Raider Podcast has an online store? You can now support your favorite podcast by checking out our selection at our website, blueraiderpodcast.com. And stay tuned for new merchandise releases as we collaborate with athletes in NIL partnerships.
Joining the Blue Raider Podcast now, he is co-host of the Group of Five podcast. He was a former quarterback at MTSU dating back to 2010 and graduating in 2012. He is owner of Domenico's Italian Deli on the Square, chairperson of the Raider Rising Collective, and most importantly, he is head coach of the Barfield Athletics in Murfreesboro. Joining the show is Jeff Murphy. Jeff, thanks for doing this, man.
Jake, I appreciate it. And by far, that's my greatest title is coaching at Barfield, and got a great squad. And just recently found out that Skylar is your nephew.
That's right. Yeah, he's going to be a star wherever you decide to put him. All the attention on him. But like I say, I love that I bring this up, and I say it's an important task for you. You got kids. You're a man that wears many hats. You finding the time to do all this stuff, but really to tie it all back into the podcast, and why I have you on today is you finding the time to give back to your alma mater. How do you do it? How do you find the time to do all these things? Be a father, obviously be a chairperson for the Raiders Rising. How do you find the time?
Man, I mean, first and foremost, I got the best, partner in crime in the world, my wife, Scarlett. Without her, I couldn't do all the things that I do. And we just find things that are important to us. I mean, obviously our kids are the most important thing in the world to us, and we want to, push them and get them involved in things that will benefit them and build community as well. So doing that, and then obviously with Domenico's, that's how we put food on the table. So serving the community has always been something that's important, but more than anything is, I'm from California originally. I was a JUCO transfer come in. Coach Stock gave me an opportunity, and MTSU and the football program has done so much for me in my life. It has set me up on this path and this journey to have so many of the things, the opportunities that I've had in the last 15 years. and literally, meeting my wife, who's born and raised from Murfreesboro. Her sister played at MTSU. My wife teaches at MTSU. My brother-in-law is the hitting coach at for the softball team at MTSU, Bryce Brents. I mean, there's so many, like, we're such a big MTSU family. We just find things that are important to us, and middle's one of them. Our kids are another, and serving the community really is one of my favorite things to do. And I've been blessed with great coaches in my life, starting from little league to my high school, to my JUCO level, to Coach Stock and all my coaches at MTSU. Like, I want to return that favor to the youth in this community, because it's so important in keeping them engaged in sports, and because that's going to be the next generation of athletes and supporters and all the things. So it's a lot, but we make it work, and we just do things that we love, and it's not work to us. It's stuff that we're passionate about.
Yeah, passionate is the word that I would use to describe what you're doing and what you guys are doing at the Raiders Rising. It's still something that is relatively new to the people of Murfreesboro. We had the pleasure of having assistant AD Lee Leon earlier this year, and he talked a lot about what they're doing in-house and how the house settlement that's coming up this next week, and we'll kind of have some more clarity on what they can do this next fall. But the external collective, Raiders Rising, is what you are a part of. Can you tell us a little bit about what Raiders Rising, how it started, who's on the board? What are kind of some things you guys are trying to do in this still early age of NIL?
Yeah, so we officially formed the collective about a year ago. It was in the spring of last year, and there's four of us board members. We're all MTSU graduates. Myself, Jonathan McGuire, John Cipriano, and Brian Kidd. Brian was also, he played football at MTSU as well. The other two graduated in the School of Business. All still around, work local. Jonathan McGuire, he owns McGuire Management. They own pretty much all the McDonald's in Middle Tennessee. So it's all, we're all guys that graduated, love our alma mater, want to support it, and understood, NIL came about in the transfer portal at the same time, right? So it was kind of, a crazy time to both implement them when it did. But we understand that the way college athletics is going, if you're not on board and not trying to facilitate relationships for your athletes, then ultimately in the long run, the entire athletic department is going to be behind. Because all these schools are getting their collectives together. You got the revenue sharing starting in July. So we just felt there was a need there. There wasn't a collective for MTSU student athletes, and us, but all four of us being business owners or being part of big companies that are in Murfreesboro, in Middle Tennessee, we just felt like, let's go ahead and do it. We got together and started it. And really, just the biggest thing is trying to connect these student athletes with people in the community, with businesses that want to partner with them to use their name, image, and likeness, actual name, image, and likeness deals. Because you see all these things in the news, right? These crazy $5-6 million deals that some of these kids are getting, and I think those get too much of the publicity, in my opinion, because those are such outliers. That's not, the vast majority of what's going on, especially at the group of 5 level. So, what we're trying to do is educate the community why NIL is important. When I played, there were so many things we couldn't do. We couldn't, have certain relationships or have opportunities to go work with people in the community or businesses, stuff like that. So, I think it's been a long time coming, but we're trying to be, really connect the student athletes, all of them at MTSU, to businesses or organizations that they may be passionate about, or something they're studying while they're in school, to hopefully by the time they graduate, like, yeah, we want to help them out while they're in school. But, once you graduate and you hit the real world, I mean, there's such less than 1% of athletes play professionally. So if you can have a head start for your career by the relationships that you've made while you're in school, it's just going to benefit them for the rest of their life.
A lot to dissect there, and really, as you're just touching on it there, I want to understand the structure of the collective, because, like, again, when we talk about revenue sharing that the school is going to be doing, it's totally different. I think, again, the grand scheme and maybe the early stages, everyone thinks of the collective as it's just a piggy bank, right? We just all donate to this piggy bank, and then you guys decide where that money goes, and to an aspect that is part of it. But as you were getting into that a little bit there, it's more about creating a relationship between these businesses and these athletes, creating an opportunity there that isn't necessarily a direct monetary relationship. There's a lot more that goes into this that far surpasses, again, monetary value.
Absolutely. We have a handful of kids that are signed right now, and we'll have organizations that come up to us, and we're going to get them involved in that. And it may not be something directly for that, but it's a nonprofit organization that we think would be great to support, and we'll have those kids go out and do it. But to explain it, I guess a little bit of the difference is, so when the revenue sharing is, as long as everything passes through in July, so those will be university funds that are raised through the athletic department that they can use to pay the student athletes to keep them here, right? So what we're doing is we're a separate entity. So our kind of role in this, and we all we're in communication with the athletic department over there. We work hand in hand with them because we understand that for this thing to go, for the entire university to go in the direction I think all Blue Raider fans want, there's got to be a common goal, and we all got to play our role and do our part to get there. So what our job is as a collective is, when businesses want to do specific advertisement with student athletes, that's where we can come in and connect the dots and make sure it's a good fit for both parties, because you do have a lot of snakes in this industry now with NIL agents, and they put this title on their Twitter or on their Facebook, and they're trying to contact these kids. There's no barriers to entry to be an NIL agent. It's not like an NFL agent where you have to go through all these rigorous procedures to get certified, and you have certain regulations that you can abide by. Right now, it's still kind of the Wild West. So we want to help our student athletes. Hey, if somebody's contacting you, let's have a conversation about it, because especially with my work with the Group of Five Guys podcast and my relationships with other collectives around the country, I can weed out a lot of people pretty quick and be like, what they're telling you doesn't sound right. Or, hey, this is a really good opportunity for you, and I want what's best for you for your life. This is something legitimate, and you really need to look at it. So we're almost kind of like trying to be a liaison for these kids to protect them a little bit, not to shy anything away. If something's legitimate and real, we want to have them take that opportunity. But what we're doing is connecting the outside businesses, communities that want to work directly with the student athlete. And there certain donors, like, if they're passionate about facilities upgrades and they want to do that, and they come to us, we're like, hey, we don't do that. Contact the BRAA, contact Lee, Chris, like, go that route. So, we're all working together for a common goal to try and move this thing forward. We're just an outside entity that's trying to connect some dots and create some relationship for these kids.
For someone like myself or anyone listening, maybe I own a small business and I want to find a way to contribute. What is the best way to, one, contribute to Raiders Rising, and then maybe take it a step back? Someone like an individual who wants to give, is there any perks to giving aside from, obviously the benefit you're giving to a student athlete, but are there any perks for us?
Yeah, so we have a couple different tiers on our website, and you can go check that out at raidersrising.com. And there's different tiers. You give so much, there'll be certain benefits, and a lot of it is behind the scenes access to certain things. We're going to have events throughout the year as well. We got a golf tournament coming up next Thursday. But for people that want to be members, that want to give annually or monthly, however you want to do it, a lot of it's going to be behind the scenes access to players and coaches and stuff like that. And it's all listed on our websites under the membership tab. So go check that out. Also, too, I just recommend you can either email the website, you can contact me directly. Our contact info is on there because I run the email and all that stuff. So I'll get back with you. But the best thing news is for us to sit down and figure out what works for your business, or if it's just an individual, because we want to make sure that what you're giving to is exactly where, what you want and where it goes to. So I would say, let's have coffee, let's have lunch or something, and we can build you something that makes sense. And if you give enough that falls under one of those tiers, you'll qualify for those benefits.
And to go ahead and echo there about this golf tournament you have coming up this Thursday. This does release on Tuesday, so it's a short window if you haven't already, but it is the 10th. It's going to be at Champions Run Golf Course there in Rockville. $150 per person or $550 per team. I would assume there's still opportunity for people, even though this is on a Tuesday. There still is an opportunity for them to sign up for Thursday.
Yeah, if anybody sees it, you can email us through the website. leaving a couple spaces for some late additions if you want to play. But this is going to be certain things we're going to be doing, throughout the year is trying to connect the community and Blue Raider athletes and coaches all in one setting. Because that's really what this is about. It's about building a community, building a brand, getting it to the point where everyone can be proud, no matter what happens on or off the field. Like we're all moving towards a goal, right? And having these events allows us to do that. It allows the community and the coaches and the players to be together and just have a good time. And all the money, as board members, we don't take anything. This is all volunteer that we do. All the money goes back to the student athletes, and to support them.
Absolutely. Great stuff. I really want to keep diving into this a little bit more. When we talk about, you said the frequency that you're talking with the university, with Lee and those guys, because I know that that's something he brought up too. He said, we're in constant communication with them, in reference to Raiders Rising. One thing that, again, a lot of us on the outside may not necessarily understand, how much of your hand is in the pot when it comes to things like recruiting. Is there a level of, I want to say, red tape that you guys have to stay away from? Are you strictly with athletes that are already signed, committed? How does Raiders Rising fall into the whole recruiting, transfer portal aspect of it?
So as far as like direct recruiting, we don't have our hand in any of that, right? So we're in constant, communication with obviously the athletic department, the coaches. We have a relationship with the coaches up there, and not having the collective in prior years with NIL and the transfer portal, it has been a deterrent for MTSU, because all these kids that are in the portal, they're talking to schools, you know, they understand what schools have collectives and what don't. So that was another driving force for us wanting to start it, because it was, it was hurting our ability to recruit across all the sports. Because if you got a kid that's, going to Western Kentucky or MTSU, that's their two choices. That's your two offers. If Western has the ability to be like, hey, our collective is here, it's been established, this is what we're able to get you, where in years past MTSU hadn't had it. So now that we're catching up and we're getting things going and we're having events and we're trying to raise funds for these student athletes, it's a better bargaining chip for our coaches, that, hey, we have a collective. This is how they help us, not only facilitating and connecting dots with relationships with businesses, but like I said, I think it's the bigger picture that coaches can say, hey, we can get you connected in the community a lot quicker than in years past because of the collective. And I think those long-term relationships is what's super important in keeping, the student athletes that we have, that we get as freshmen, or even the ones that come in, because let's just be honest, there's schools out there in the country that can outbid us. It's just, it is what it is. But if we can create a great relationship with these student athletes, connect them to the community, they love their coaching staff. You try and make it as difficult as possible for those kids to want to leave, because we can't stop other collectives or agents trying to contact them. All we can do is take care of these athletes the best possible way that we can. And you do that by facilitating relationships with the coaches, with the community, with business owners. These kids are incredible. You sit and talk with these kids, every one of them has got a great story, where they come from, how they've gotten here. They're all awesome kids. So I think just getting these kids in front of the community is what is important, and it's a big part of the puzzle of keeping them here.
Someone that's been on both sides of this coin. You were a former player back in the early 2010s, and now you're a part of the NIL Collective here at MTSU. I would be remiss if I don't bring up, your efforts on the Group of Five Guys podcast, the Wild West that it is, especially at a place particular to like MTSU or anyone in Conference USA for that matter. Could you imagine what life would have been like in the 2010s had something like this gone on? And now it just seems like, again, it's, as I've put it, it's the Wild West. How do you navigate this as a player? I mean, obviously having a collective, someone in your corner that can make this a lot easier for you, but we hear nightmare stories like what happened at UNLV last year, which I would imagine as time goes on, that is going to get worse and worse because there is no regulation on these external forces. You have agents who are giving bad information, who are taking massive cuts from these student athletes that it's maddening as someone on the outside looking in, but as someone who was a former player, I mean, how in the world would you even navigate what's good information and what's bad information?
I mean, it's all your, your network and the people you have in your corner, right? And for me, like if I moving from California, like I wouldn't have had anybody. You know what I mean? And my family's not, a super, we all played in high school athletic background, but none of us had played in college. So none of us really knew what the landscape was like. So it's got to be overwhelming for these kids and especially these kids' parents trying to understand what is legitimate and what's not. So that's, I'm friends with a handful of other heads of NIL Collective, specifically in the group of five that do such a great job. And a lot of times, like I bounce ideas off them or like, hey, does this sound right? Like this, one of our kids is getting contacted and kind of shop ideas back and forth. They've been great. But yeah, it would be so difficult as a young man, especially, like didn't come from a wealthy situation at all. So if somebody contacted me and say, hey, I can get you $150,000 if you come over here and play, it'd be hard not to jump at it. But when you have somebody who, and four of us that are business owners, and as you just get older, kind of your spidey senses and radars when it comes to certain people in certain situations kind of just go up. Things that grass may look greener, but when you get over there, it's fake, and you just kind of learn to pick out certain things and characteristics of people. But that's what we want to be for these kids. We want to be a resource for them. I'm never going to look at a kid and be like, hey, I think this is legitimate and I'm going to lie to you because I want you here. That's not who I am as a person. That's not how we are as a board. Like if that position comes up, I'm like, hey, this all checks out on our end, and this is something you really need to consider. Now, this is what we can do for you, and then these are the factors you have to think about because a lot of kids they see the money, right, but they don't think about all the other things that come along with it. If you love your situation here at Middle Tennessee and you are the guy at a receiver, quarterback, running back, whatever the position is, and your ultimate goal is to go to the NFL, you switching schools for your last year, going into an environment that you know nothing about because you haven't talked to the coaching staff over there. All you've talked to is, you know, some agent or somebody at somebody other's collective, unless you're in the portal, right? If you're in the portal, then you can have communication. So it's like trying to just guide these kids, be like, hey, like if you want to play in the NFL, what you need is stats and film. That is what you need. And if you are getting that here at MTSU, you're taking a chance of going somewhere else, maybe for the money. Got to take that into account. But where are you going to play? Because if you're leaving Tennessee, which is a no income tax state, and you're going to New York to play at Syracuse or one of these other states that you're going to get taxed at, take more of that check. Okay, that final dollar amount comes down, right? You're single. Most of these people aren't married. They don't have dependents. So like you can jump up in tax brackets pretty darn quick. So it's just putting all the information in front of the kids and be like, hey, here's the facts. This is what it looks like. You're making a pretty big decision for net at the end of the day, $50,000. I don't know if that's quite worth it, but that's something you got to decide. Now, if it's $200,000 and it all checks out, this is what we can offer and you got to make the decision. But we're just trying to educate our kids as best as we can so they have all the numbers in front of them so they can make an educated decision. And that's all we can really do, right? We can do what we can do as far as the money, what we've raised and offer them in the stability and they know what they're getting with us. And then just here's the other side of it. And then ultimately they got to make the decision.
The basketball transfer portal is a hot topic of discussion right now. The Final Four just concluded, and it was all chalk, all one seed, something that as a G5 guy, I hate to see, as I'm sure you can understand that as well. Where does this landscape look like in 5-10 years? I know I'm talking basketball. You obviously are more versed in the football side of things. Where do you see G5 in 5 to 10 years if things continue the way that they are?
Now this is just my opinion. I have no crystal ball. I could be very well be wrong, but the way things seem to be trending, and this is more of on the football side of things, but it seems like the SEC and the Big Ten are, I mean, they're driving all of this, right? And we talked about some of these outside NIL deals. Now there's supposedly going to be a clearinghouse that is a third party entity that is supposed to be NIL deals over $600. They're going to approve or disapprove based off of market value. Now, I haven't got the information on when this is supposed to go into effect, but the Big Ten and the SEC are the ones who appointed that third party company. So, again, when this happens, it seems like the Big Ten and SEC are driving everything. I think that about the top 20 to 25 revenue generating programs, football specifically in the country, are going to break away from the NCAA and do their own thing. That's what I think. And you're going to have obviously professional, you're going to have almost like semi pro, and then you'll have everybody else. And that's not going to include the bottom half of the SEC, bottom half of the ACC, a lot of the Big 12. So, there's going to have to be some shifting around when that happens. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm guessing 5 to 10 years. But once that happens, I have no idea what that's going to do for basketball. I assume all basketball will stay in the NCAA, but you also have a bunch of money making programs there, right? Revenue generating programs. Are they going to break and do their own thing? So it's pretty crazy. But I think everything will be reshuffled once that separation happens. And hopefully we'll kind of get back to the college sports of old a little bit. You're still NIL is not going away. Transfer portal is not going away. I hope they get into the part of when they're doing contracts for every player, because right now what's going on, it makes no sense. You have portal windows multiple times a year. Kids can jump in and jump out and transfer whenever they want. Like, let's stop it with all these shenanigans. Let's have a contract that everybody knows the terms and agrees on. And if the player wants to bet on himself and do a 1-year contract and the program or school agrees with it, fine. If they want stability and sign a 3 or 4-year deal, great. But they're gonna have to be there for that contract, unless there's breach of contract and they get terminated. That's just what I hope happens and what I think will happen. But your guess is as good as mine, Jake. I have no idea.
Well, I think that's really, in my opinion, the best solution to all of this. And you talk about the football, the larger P4s breaking away and creating this super conference, if you will. I mean, if you do something like that, now we're paying for play just about. So why not just do contracts? At what point do we just draw that line? And I tend to agree with you. I want the kids to make the money, right? That you are bringing in the revenue because of your talents on the field. The team is doing well. You get your money. I got no issue with that. We got guys like Omari Kelly, go to Michigan State, get your bag. I get it. I really do. And obviously the fan in me is like, oh, I hate this because they're always going to leech off of us. We find the talent. We took the gamble on Omari Kelly, right? We took the gamble on XYZ, and now we don't reap those benefits because we are the ones that took that gamble, and someone that has a higher dollar gets them. But if you bring in the contract of it all, treat these kids like adults. They want adult money as they rightfully earn. Let's treat them like adults. Let's get them contracts. If they breach the contract, there's got to be a buyout. The idea have been floating around about paying. I want to say they want to pay back the school that they take them from. That's a lot of moving parts. It's a great idea in theory. How do you execute it? I'm sure there's a workaround. There's plenty of lawyers all throughout this country that can, save these P4s that money. But at the end of the day, I think contracts really is the best solution for all these kids. But I guess really as a G5 guy and a fan of a G5 team, I just worry that does MTSU ever get left behind? Does the Western Kentuckys and the UTEPs get left behind when all this dust settles in 5 to 10 years?
I don't think we get left behind. Now we're not gonna be in the league that breaks away, but neither is 80% of the universities that are in the FBS right now. So we'll be in that boat. But this is again another reason why NIL and Raiders Rising, why we wanted to start it, because the further there was not a collective until collectives are officially say, hey, you guys got to go away, you can't do anything. It's why we needed to get on it and get going, because we don't want to be left behind. We want to continue to move forward. We want to be, there's no reason. I've been to 25 different group of 5 campuses, universities, programs now in the last 4 years. Murfreesboro and MTSU has all of the pieces to be an elite group of 5 program in the country. It can be on the level of Boise State. It can be an App State. Like, it can be that. but it's going to take buy-in and a plan to move this thing forward. And we're just trying to do our part on the NIL collective side of getting it going, getting these relationships built, back mended, and to do our part to push this thing forward, because I know we want it as Blue Raider fans. We want to be able to turn the TV on and see that top 25 ranking, and see us playing in bowl games every year, see us make the tournament on men and women's basketball. Like, it's there. It's right there for all of us to get, but we got to stop getting on social media and calling this person out or all these people on the comments. Like, if you got a problem, there's BRAA. You can get involved with Raiders, right? Like, there are avenues for Blue Raider fans to get involved. And I constantly hear the thing about, I don't want to get involved because of so-and-so, this person. Okay, well, you're just doing further harm to the university that you claim you love, that you went to if you went there. Like, guys, get on board and make a difference. Like, that's all you have to do. And I promise you, when we reach that point, it's going to feel so much better, and you're going to have so much more pride in it, because you were a part of getting the university and getting the athletic departments or the athletic teams back to where everybody wants them to be.
I'll save the listeners from me getting on a soapbox, because I can do this and I've done this before. But contrary to popular belief, these guys don't want to lose games. I know that's hard to believe. They're not trying to lose these games, but I think you put it well. Be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. But Jeff, I have so much more. Hopefully we can have you on again in the future. Really insightful talk with you, talking Raiders Rising. Of course, again, a busy man. Anything really you want to plug outside of Raider Rising before I let you go?
Man, no, I appreciate you having me on, Jake. I think you do a great job. This podcast was much needed. So I'm glad you're doing it, and you do a great job, and appreciate you having me on. And guys, if you're a Blue Raider fan, just go to the games. That is the best thing you can do. Go to the games, be supportive. If you can give. If you can't, you got time, give some of your time. That's what all the programs, all the athletes, that's what they want. They want to play in front of packed arenas in a packed stadium, and it means more to them than you could ever imagine. So go to the games, probably see me there, probably see Jake there, and we'll have a good time.
Jeff, once again, thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate you, Jake.
The BRP is proudly partnered with Rivals Network affiliate GoMiddle.com. Subscribe for premium content for all the inside scoop on MTSU athletics, recruiting, or join our free forums to discuss today's episode and all things Blue Raiders. The BRP is also partnered with the College Huddle, a nationwide collaborative effort with over 80 Division I programs represented. Check out the website at thecollegehuddle.com to catch up on all college football content with daily articles and episodes provided by the largest college podcast community on the internet.
Once again, I want to say thanks to Jeff Murphy for joining the podcast today to talk about NIL and the Raiders Rising Collective. If you want to give, that website, once again, is blueraidersrising.com. That's with an S at the end of Raiders, blueraidersrising.com to give, as well as sign up for their upcoming golf invitational this Thursday that's at Champions Run there in Rockville, Tennessee. So I look forward to having Jeff and those at the Blue Raider Collective, Blue Raider Rising Collective moving forward in the future. But now, if you stuck around this far, you know what's coming. We're going to be talking some more hoops portal discussion. The portal is still remaining open for another 14 days from whenever this actually releases. So all eyes are there. We had some more movement on both the men's and women's side. First, let's touch on the men, because they had a subtraction and an addition this week. So to recap to let you know where we are with the portal, you have Justin Porter and Cam Weston are both in the portal already. However, Jalen Counter surprisingly entered the portal this last week. Now, definitely a big loss for multitude of reasons. Jalen, obviously, a lot of us thought he would be returning. It's kind of been who he is, kind of a loyalist for a lot of places he goes. But I can't blame the guy. He really shined bright this year, and I anticipate him going out to see what offers are out there for him, much like what Justin did last year. I wouldn't consider Counter being ruled out entirely from returning this next year, because if you enter, you are just as likely to come back, as we've seen with in years past, as I already alluded to, Justin Porter. So I wouldn't say all is lost with Counter. Obviously, I would love to have him back. Definitely one of the names that I would look forward to returning in the blue and white. But again, I can't blame him for making business decisions for himself, and I wish him nothing but the best. And obviously, if the opportunity arises, I hope we jump at that opportunity to add him back. But the other caveat to this is now you have no point guards really on roster. The only one that is technically on roster, you could say Trey Green is someone that played some time there in high school, but he's really been relegated to the shooting guard position here at MTSU. You are bringing in Jax Howard, the high school signee from Webb, who is a point guard. However, I don't know that he's at the level that you need from a starting point guard, especially in Conference USA, where it's very guard heavy. You need a lot of guys that have that experience. So I'm really happy with this new guy that they brought in, Javon Carter. He's coming to the Blue Raiders from Penn State University. He's actually from Alcoa up in the Knoxville-Maryville area, where he won 2 state championships. He also was a Mr. Basketball his senior year, MVP of those state championships back in 2023, 2024. He was a 3-star coming out as in the 2A Alcoa High School. One of the big parts of that Penn State recruiting class, they were top 25 in the country this last year. They had an injury to Puff Johnson, and they kind of fell off when conference play came in because they started out really strong. And Javon, unfortunately, had to sit behind Ace Baldwin, the VCU transfer there at Penn State, and he's a very talented point guard. So when you look at his numbers, Carter's numbers at Penn State, you might think the numbers aren't really there, the minutes aren't there. However, the guy had to really earn his time with Ace Baldwin starting at point guard. So I'm really impressed with this tape. If you're not watching on YouTube, I do encourage you to do so, or find this video on our social media. Has great touch. Obviously, he's a very polished shooter as a guy that scored 3,000 points in high school. That doesn't happen on sheer accident. One of the things or criticisms that I've read about him at his time there at Penn State is his ability to score at the rim, something he did very well in high school, but obviously when the play jumps up a level, when you get to the Big Ten, he kind of experienced, had some shots blocked more so than you would like down close to the rim. And so that's something that creating space becomes a lot harder in the college game because of how quick they are. But I like to think him moving to the Conference USA, you have that opportunity to do so, create more space at the rim, get more downhill, because that's a part of his style that I like. Again, from that aspect, it is very Jalen Counter-esque. He has great vision. He never seems to be in a rush. He's very poised as a point guard, pass first point guard. However, as we've seen in his career in high school, the guy can score, and he can score at will. So I look forward to that aspect of his game developing here when he gets to Murfreesboro, because we'll certainly need it, but a much more polished shooter. If you had to put him as a comp from players in years past, I look to him a lot like Donovan Sims, a guy that, again, has great vision, is poised, never really rushes himself, and has a great jump shot. However, the one caveat, like I said, is his ability to get to the rim and finish there. And, hopefully in a slightly, I'm going to say, slower league, and that's not necessarily a fair comparison, but a slower league that is the Conference USA compared to the Big Ten. So I think it's a great addition for the Blue Raiders. I think when you have 3 point guards in the portal, it is pivotal that you have someone there to fill in those shoes in the event that none of those guys come back. So Javon is a great addition to this roster, and I think as we sit today on April 8th, he's going to be your starting point guard coming this fall / winter. But I would still keep eyes on what they're going to do in that backcourt, because with those 3 guys in the portal, it does run very thin back there. So that's your addition there. You still have plenty of scholarships available. I think my count is 4, maybe 5 scholarships still available. So it's going to be an offseason, much like we saw last year, where they're going to add 5 to 6 guys over this offseason, especially now that you have the additional scholarships available to you because of the settlement. So look forward to what they're going to be doing on the men's side in the coming weeks. And again, there's still 2 weeks left of the portal, so we can still have movement on both sides here. But we go to the women's side. No additions for the Lady Raiders. However, they did have one more player enter the portal this last week. It was Dora Rice. She only played 2 games this last year. She was a guard coming to us from Budapest, Hungary. One of those players that kind of just got lost in the shuffle with as deep as the backcourt was this last year, as young as they were. She is a sophomore moving into her junior year. So I don't blame her, once again, trying to find that opportunity to play somewhere else. Someone like Zahira Rubio, like we saw last year, who was moving into her junior season. She took her opportunities out to the Boca Raton and played for Florida Atlantic. So I see Dora kind of landing in an area like that. Didn't really get an opportunity to see much of her playing time, but of course we wish her all the best. But most importantly for the women's program, that now leaves you with 2 free open scholarships to sign this upcoming year. Now we're still waiting on the announcement from the settlement, the House settlement that's going on Monday. So obviously this won't be entirely up to date if they're going to be extending the 5 years to 5 5 years to play 5 seasons, and hopefully we'll have something on that in the coming weeks. But I think we'll know for certain this week if that is going to come to fruition or not. I wouldn't hold my breath. This is something that they have kicked this can down the road a lot, so I don't anticipate that happening this year. And obviously, if they miss the window through this summer, then we'll have to graduate these girls that have already graduated. So as you sit today, assuming that they don't get the 5-year extension on those seniors, you have 2 open scholarships, and I know that they're recruiting heavily at the guard position. I think they would love to find a good fit at the 4 or 5, but I think it just comes down to really the fit and the need. I know that they're comfortable with this signing class that's coming in, especially in the front court side of things, but depth is, I think, inevitable, as I said in last week's episode. So I don't really have a too keen of an eye exactly where they're going to be going, but if you're not already, over at gomiddle.com, I have the running board for the women's portal. I know Shane is doing the thread for the men's side of things, as well as Oliver's keeping us up to date over on social media. So there's lots of places you can still stay tuned in, or of course you can wait till our next week's episode where we will continue these portal updates. So that does it for your portal updates. But before we log off on today's episode, let's take just a second, touch back up with baseball and softball. Baseball was in Lynchburg this last week, had a really rough week, but the injuries, they just continue. Trace Phillips missed his Friday start with some stiff back, and so you had to roll into some bullpen duties, an opener, if you will, there on Friday, and you got run ruled. And then Saturday was really your best opportunity on the weekend. You got Drew Horn back, who is, I would say, promoted from the Sunday spot up to the Saturday spot, and he looked great. He pitched 5 innings, threw 100 pitches in those 5 innings. Unfortunately for him, that pitch count got too high. 5 innings, gave up no runs, 5 strikeouts and 4 walks. But you had to roll over to the bullpen, and they gave up 5 runs over those last 4 innings. And so you fall in the Saturday contest, and then they were run ruled on Sunday. So a tough stretch for them this week, but they're on the road on both of their midweek games. On today, they'll be in Florence, Alabama against North Alabama, and then on tomorrow they'll be in Clarksville facing Austin Peay, and then they're back home at Reese Smith Jr. Field to face Louisiana Tech, a team that historically has a great program. They're currently already sitting atop of Conference USA, what is a very top-heavy Conference USA, with Western winning 2 out of 3 against Dallas Baptist. Huge for them. Liberty obviously has kind of got their feet underneath them now that they've won 3 straight against the Blue Raiders. And La Tech is currently sitting atop of the conference at 6-2 overall. So they start that series on Friday at 6 p.m. and hopefully the Raiders can get somewhat healthy and see where the chips may fall for them this weekend, trying to get another series win for them. It's been a minute, but hopefully they can get that one under their belt as they move deeper and deeper into conference play. Now, the softball, they picked up their second top 25 win of the year, a win in Lynchburg as well against the 24th ranked Liberty Lady Flames. The Friday matchup, they won 8-2. Big shout out, Jenna Want, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. She, I would say, from that perspective, single-handedly won you the game. But I don't want to shy away from Layla Amon, that your freshman starting pitcher for that matter, who went up against a top 25 opponent, pitched 6 innings, gave up 1 earned run, and incredible enough, had no strikeouts. She did it without striking anyone out. Contact pitcher as it comes, only giving up 6 hits over those 6 innings. Got herself into some trouble there in the bottom of the 6th inning, but she got out of the jam, handed the ball over to Mary Martinez, who did the job there in that final inning, fought off some walks, some trouble herself, but they pulled it out. So, as I said in last week's episode, this softball team has the ability. They handed Liberty their first loss, and if you take it back to the whole series, the first game of their doubleheader on Saturday, they nearly came back and won that one. So this team is capable, obviously, of winning these ball games. They're beating the best team in the conference. They beat Mississippi State, who's a top 20 team in the country. If they can just find a way to piece together the pitching along with the bats, this team, I think, is very dangerous, and we're going to see that down the stretch. Right now, they're on the cusp of making the Conference USA tournament, currently sitting tied for 6th place with Jack State right now. So you literally are on the cusp right now. But in these closing weeks, they're going to be facing off against the likes of Jack State, they're at Western this weekend at home. They got Jack State the next weekend after that. Then they have New Mexico State and UTEP. All of those teams are in the bottom half of Conference USA. So if you can pick up series wins here, you almost cement yourself an opportunity to the Conference USA tournament. And like I said, this team is very dangerous. They have very good arms on that starting rotation. And when they're hitting, as they've already set a program record for home runs, and they still have 4 conference series left, this team has the ability to really make some noise in the Conference USA tournament. They just got to get there, got to find that consistency. And I look forward to it. So big week from them, although they did lose the series in Lynchburg. But this week, tomorrow, they'll be at home against Lipscomb at 6 p.m. And then, as I already said, they have a 3-game set with Western Kentucky at home on Friday at 6 p.m., Saturdays at 4, and then Sunday is at noon. So look forward to the 100 Miles of Hate this weekend at the Softball Diamond. And that'll wrap up our spring check-in with baseball and softball. I appreciate you once again for tuning in today's episode. Big shout out once more to Jeff Murphy of Raiders Rising NIL Collective for joining us today. If you want to give, that website is blueraidersrising.com to give to that NIL Collective. If you're not already, follow us on social media, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. If you're not already subscribed, just do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It does a lot for me. Getting closer to that 100 mark. I'd love to do it before the end of this season, and you'd be a big part of that and a big help. And of course, we have portal updates. If you don't want to wait till next week's episode, make sure you're following us on social media so you get those updates as soon as they happen. And of course, over at gomiddle.com for all those running threads that we're doing over there. But I appreciate you for tuning into the back half of this episode. And until next time, go Blue.